Hey guys, Adam Miranda here. If you've been watching my channel for any period of time, you know that I've been separating from tactical further and further, and the deeper that I get into handgun combatives, the more I've come to realize that less is more. And when you're looking for handgun combatives, there's no better guy to train from than Dave Spaulding. We're at Dave Spaulding's Critical Space Handgun.
Right, Critical Space Combat Pistol.
Critical Space Combat Pistol. We're at Hilltop Firearms Training Facility in Dover, Tennessee, and we'll get to the range here in a little bit, but I wanted to ask Dave if he can just share with us some of his philosophy and just some of what he's doing with the company.
Sure, Abner, I'd be glad to. First of all, I think it's important for the viewer to realize I don't really teach shooting. I mean, I do teach shooting because you have to teach people to shoot in order to teach them how to fight. But my classes aren't directed at shooting skills per se. They're directed at what I call the combative application of the handgun. They're fighting techniques. They would be the equivalent of open hand skills, like say a Krav Maga or the World War II combatives type fighting. They're not a martial art, they're a fighting skill. And what I teach in my classes are fighting skills with a handgun. Each class is designed to address a particular set of skills with the understanding that I cannot guarantee you how they'll need to be applied. That's situationally dependent. I heard recently that situational dependence is an excuse for lazy training, and that's just horse manure, because the situation will always vary, and how you respond, how you adapt, how you apply is going to be dependent on how that situation unfolds. So I offer my students a set of skills that they need to understand, practice, master, and then anchor to a level of automaticity so that when they do need them, they can apply them appropriately.
This is the second class that I've taken from Dave, and I've taken a lot of tactical training over the years, and Dave has a way of distilling a lot of what I've picked up over the years in a much more applicable manner.
I like to think that my methodology is succinct. It's to the point, and it does what it needs to do without a lot of fluff. I'm not very flashy. I'm not very flamboyant.
Never would have guessed.
Yeah, I don't do random. I don't do arbitrary. I don't do any of that kind of stuff. There is a reason based on real-world application for everything I teach. And as you know, and as I told my students, I have literally been studying armed conflict my whole adult life. Primarily around the handgun. And we're talking back to the days of the Old West. I mean, I've interviewed hundreds of people who have been involved in it. And I've taken the lessons that I've learned from these folks, the lessons that I've learned from my time in law enforcement, lessons I've learned from my training, and I've distilled them into what I call handgun combatives. Combative defined in my old worn-out version of the Webster's Dictionary as ready and willing to fight. So what we do in these classes is try to make you ready and willing to fight with a handgun. Nothing more, nothing less. It's straight to the point.
And also needs to be added that the size of Dave's classes are very small. Plus he splits the class in half. Like, we've got 14 people at this class, so we're running relays of 7. It gives you time to jam mags, hydrate, take a break, but it also gives you the opportunity to watch your fellow students running a drill. And at a certain level, it allows you to kind of game it a little bit so you can learn from their mistakes. Mm-hmm. And when you step out, you find what works for you. And it really is a unique way of teaching, because instead of having a sort of a free-for-all mentality, you're having very individual instruction, because he's only working with 7 people at a time.
Well, and at the risk of sounding a little bit arrogant, I'm guessing that people are paying the tuition because they want time with me. They want to hear what I got to say. They want individual attention from me. So if I've only got 7 people I've got to deal with, I can give every one of those people a lot of individual attention. I can actually stop the relay, and I can work with this student and correct that without slowing down the class too much. So I like that. I like the idea of being able to talk to it. I want to get to know everybody's name. I want to find out what their problems are. I want to help them find that problem. But I only got them for 2 days. So hopefully they understand the importance and they continue this journey that we call training. But to me, to spend individual time is very, very important, because Handgun Combatives is not about me. It's not about making me famous. It's not about making me legendary or celebrity status. It's about you. It's about the student getting better. I can't understand how it would be any other way.
So Dave, tell me about some of what you've got here on the table.
Well, like here's the holster. This is a Raven Hackathorn signature scabbard, and it is very reflective of my philosophy. It's simple and effective. And first, you know, the fact that Ken Hackathorn came up with this, you know,
Ken knows his stuff.
Ken's one of them guys you listen to. I consider him a mentor and friend. So, you know, to have his holster and use it is very good. As you can see, it's minimal. It's just a dual slot design. It's well formed. Rides close to the body but allows rapid access. It's just the perfect style holster, at least in my mind. So I use that. But you know, I've been using more and more Raven products over the last year. You know, I've been using the Eidolon, the Vanguard, this one. I've got a couple of Phantoms, one with the light mount and everything on it. The Eidolon's interesting because
it's busy when it comes out of the box.
When I first got that, I thought this is a gun bucket. I thought, holy crap. But then you get it in position and you line it up and you make all the adjustments on it and you see how it works, and it's like, wow, this thing really, really works well. So you got to give Raven credit on that. They really seem to know what they're doing.
Yeah.
The magazine pouch is actually an ex-concealment. They're no longer in business. But it's my design and the fact that the clip is upward so that when you access the magazine pouch, it flexes. So if you don't get the perfect grip on it. Now, my kids are in the process of getting ready to recreate this with another vendor, and it'll be sold on the Handgun Combatives web store.
And I like this little hook right there.
Yeah, there's going to be a similar version to that, and it's fitted for 1.5-inch belt because it's going to go with the Handgun Combatives everyday carry belt. And this is also sold on the web store, which I don't operate. I'm certainly involved in it, but I don't operate it. My son-in-law and daughter do. And I wanted a very streamlined but very, very strong belt. No buckles, nothing real complicated. Jake Stevens, the owner of Aries Gear, the tactical belts, he agreed to make this for us. And he designed it and put it together. And I was very, very pleased. And as you can see, this one's a black and brown two-tone, which we actually ended up not using. This was one of the prototypes. They sell a black, they sell a coyote, and they sell a gray and black, which is very popular. But it's simply a hook and loop. I can't call it Velcro because it's not
Velcro.
It's not really Velcro, it's something else. And it's really easy to open and close. The interesting thing, once it's closed, it can't pull it apart. Yeah. It's the most interesting thing I've ever seen. I don't know how Jake came up with it, but it's a fantastic everyday carry belt that's just been very popular, and it's working out real well.
The load on belts, for those of you that don't quite get tactical belts, the load on belts is never this way. The forces are always being imparted this way.
Sure. The weight of the gun and lights and all the other things.
Our belly, which you don't have, but
working on it anyway. And then the pistol. You know, I've standardized on the Glock 19 after carrying many different guns over the years. HK, SIG, Smith & Wesson, Steyrs, all kinds of different stuff. I ended up with the Glock 19 because it's big enough and small enough.
That's right.
But I've got to have some modifications to it. I mean, I've got unusually small hands for a male, so I have a hard time reaching the trigger and getting proper geometry on it. So I needed guns that had a grip cut down so I could get on them. And originally I used Robar. I had a student in one of my classes, fellow by the name of Bob Mazzaros, who actually at the time was making custom motorcycle and automobile parts, had a full CNC shop and everything. And he was asking me, he said, well, you know, if you had a perfect handgun, what features would it have on it? So I started explaining it to him, and it came out to be like this. And as you can see, and it's unloaded, you can see it's got the reduced grip, it's got the undercut and the trigger guard, carry bevel package, the sharp edges and the corners are removed, much like what they used to do to 1911s. It's got the Ameriglow cap sights on it of my design. It's got the Ghost bullet forward so that my thumb doesn't rest on it, but I can still manipulate it with my hands.
Yeah, pay attention to that, guys.
Yeah. Ghost connector inside, and this one has Bob's fat trigger, which is literally redesigned to move backwards so that I can get my finger on it properly, like that. So it's got the Ghost extended mag button, but it's set up the way I want my combat pistol to be set up. And people are like, "Oh, you got to use a custom gun, huh?" Yeah, I like custom guns. It's like Clint Smith said, if you're going to have one, you might as well have a nice one. So, and that's my philosophy. And it's both simple and effective. It does what I want it to do, and all of that kind of stuff. And that's the way I look at all of the equipment that I use and advocate. But by the same token, as we were talking last night, I don't try to counsel people on what they bring to class.
Right. And he doesn't, because I've brought things to him, and he goes, "What do you think of it?" That's it.
It's, you know, if you want a light on your gun, if you want these type of sights, if you want this type of holster, it's up to you. I can sit here and I can tell you and tell you and tell you, and you're not going to listen. But if you use it and find out along the way that, hey, this really doesn't work out that well for me, that's definitive. And that's what's going to decide it. So, you know, in my estimation, you should keep your equipment simple, effective, useful for you. Don't really care what somebody else is doing. Useful for you. And as long as it's reliable, you'll probably do fine. But you really don't need a lot of gizmos and gizmotches and widgets and all that kind of stuff. You need it to be pretty straightforward, simple, and easy to use.
Is there anything else you want to add?
Nope. I think I appreciate the time and glad you came to class.
Yeah, me too.
Hope I get to see you again soon.